Welcome back. I'm in the studio again with Lt.Col Baker and Lt.Col Cologne, and now we will discuss gender-specific training. Let's talk about being a female foreign area officer assigned to a region in which males hold primary power and dominate in roles of political leadership, moral authority, social privilege, and control of property within the social system. What best prepared you as a female FAO to work in that environment?
Just rely on your training and experience that you've received throughout your career in the Air Force. You're a U.S. military officer and you represent the U.S. government. Despite any cultural differences that your host nation may have, they will respect you as such. Be professional, be courteous, and remember who you represent. While Saudi Arabia is a notoriously gender-segregated society, I never had any difficulties interacting with the Saudi officers. The Royal Saudi Air Force officers were familiar with the United States Air Force, and they understood our military culture. They respect professionalism and competence, and despite any cultural gender barriers, they were accustomed to respecting U.S. military officers.
Well, when I first entered the Air Force, well-intentioned people advised me that I would have to work harder as a female to achieve the recognition given to my male counterparts. However, I chose from the beginning that I wouldn't draw attention to my gender, but instead my work would be recognized on its own merit. I've been able to progress in my career as a logistician and a FAO with the same ideology.
What were the most challenging aspects and obstacles each of you experienced in your FAO position during this assignment?
When I was assigned to Saudi Arabia, women still couldn't drive, so I relied entirely on the Defense Attaché Office drivers for official engagements and for male colleagues for transportation otherwise. It wasn't a huge inconvenience as the motor pool in the embassy was equipped for the number of female diplomats that were stationed there. In professional environments, although there weren't any female facilities in any of the Saudi defense locations, our male military counterparts always made sure to accommodate me. They were great hosts and they didn't treat me any differently due to my gender. While the preponderance of my time was spent interacting with Saudi officers, I did have a few encounters with the junior enlisted personnel there, and they weren't quite as familiar in interacting with foreign female officers. So while they weren't disrespectful, they weren't accustomed to addressing women outside of their family, so they didn't address me directly. I wasn't offended as I understood this to be part of their culture, particularly if they weren't accustomed to interacting with foreigners. I would address them in Arabic and then they would answer my male colleagues as a response, many of whom did not speak Arabic.
And in Latin America, building a personal relationship helps build a professional relationship. The culture is very social and personable. It's important to get well acquainted with those you work with. Females should not withdraw from this environment and expectations, but should also set clear professional boundaries. Our demeanor should not change from how we carry ourselves in a U.S. military environment. In some countries, the behavior towards women and enlisted personnel is not parallel to our norm. Therefore, we encourage empowering the minority groups to maximize full potential of their service.
What education or training did we miss in handling gender-specific training?
Interestingly, in my experience, the U.S. military places more importance on the gender issue in the military, particularly with regards to foreign counterparts than some of our foreign counterparts do. I don't believe there should be any gender-specific training, and simply focus training on the culture of a region, awareness of some of the difficulties that may be encountered in that country, and reinforcement of our national and professional military values.
And in Latin America, it is customary to greet with a kiss or two kisses depending on the country. Some females and some males find it uncomfortable, and everyone has the right to reject the custom, but understand that it may detract from the relationship building you might be trying to achieve. The training pipeline should ensure the officer understands the culture that he or she will be immersed in to allow preparation to accept or reject cultural customs that the officer is not accustomed to.
What advice can you give to female FAOs in training?
Remember that there may be some gender-specific challenges in your country, but they'll come down to that individual, and they're not a representation of the culture of an entire country. If I were able to operate in Saudi Arabia and my Saudi male counterparts treated me with the same respect that they did my male colleagues, then you should be able to operate the same as you do anywhere in the world. Some of the biases you'll encounter are situational and they're personal, and they don't represent an entire nation. So don't go into an assignment with a predisposed bias of your own, thinking that because it's a female you will have a bit of a handicap. Treat this country with the same respect and professionalism that you will expect in return.
And along the same lines, make sure you understand the culture you will be immersed in and be prepared to accept or reject the cultural customs of that region, and that will ensure your success as a female in that country.
All right. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Baker and Lieutenant Colonel Cologne, for your input.